Hey, what's up guys and gals? My name is Ricknineg. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to be looking at another movie review. Hopefully you are enjoying these. I did a few on the classic James Bond movies with 007, so hopefully you take a look at those and enjoy them and let me know what you think. I also did one on Saw and on, I believe, a Marx Brothers film. So we're going to do something completely different, going to my childhood roots, and we're going to talk about superheroes today, specifically Spider-Man. I used to watch the Spider-Man cartoon from the 90s. Are any of you familiar with that?
If that's possible, no loud noises to help you!
It was so good in my opinion. That was my holy grail. That's where I started out watching. That's how I was introduced to Spider-Man. I got into there were books that I used to buy and like how to draw Spider-Man. I used to watch all the movies going back to, I think, 2001, where we had the first Tobey Maguire movie. I fell in love with that movie. That was, to me, fantastic. I was around 13 when that came out, and it was just amazing. Spider-Man 2, I love that one. Dr. Octopus, he'd been one of my favorite villains of the Spider-Man, saga. And then Spider-Man 3 came out. And then we had emo Spider-Man in Spider-Man 3, we had Sandman, we had a horrible Venom in my opinion. I was not a fan of Spider-Man 3. And then now we have something called SpiderMan Homecoming. And I'm like, well actually before that we had two amazing Spider-Mans, I believe. With Andrew Garfield we had, I don't know if I saw the first one, I don't remember, but I saw half of the one with Electro and then I turned it off. I couldn't sit through it. I may have to do it for like a review, but I just couldn't. And so now Spider-Man Homecoming, and I'm like, why are they keep remaking the Spider-Man? They gotta get it right and everything. And let me tell you, I went into the movie Spider-Man Homecoming as a skeptic. I went in loving Tobey Maguire. Already I made up my mind that Tobey Maguire was the best of all the Spider-Man incarnations. So keep that in mind when I'm watching this, okay? I try to be very open, that's why I watch the movie, but I want you to see where I'm coming from because you may be surprised as we watch this. So Spider-Man Homecoming came out last year, 2017, I think roughly July or July 4th. So immediately as the film starts, we see Michael Keaton. I'm a big Batman fan, and so I love Michael Keaton as Batman, not so much Bruce Wayne. But I think he was pretty good. He was very, very good as Batman. And I was like, how's he gonna pull this off? I love Beetlejuice as well. So I'm a Michael Keaton fan. And immediately I think he nailed the part. He nailed the part of the Vulture, Adrian Toomes. He did a fantastic job. I don't want to really go into the story of this or any spoilers like that, but of course, you need to know who the characters are. You need to know what's going on, what little fights here and there, but nothing that will reveal anything of very, very big significance. Let me tell you, I saw Civil War. That's the first time we see Tom Holland as Spider-Man, and I was not a big fan. I was not a big fan of the CGI Spider-Man. There is a good amount of CGI Spider-Man here, but so they have the same thing in the Tobey Maguire series, or in those three movies. And so I'm not knocking it, but there was also some practical effects. But there was a lot of CGI here, even the eyes and so forth. But there's like a reason for it. I love when there's reasons, justifications for things. And I started to warm up to Tom Holland. I came in not liking or being like, oh, I don't think I'm gonna like him. And as the movie progressed, I kind of fell in love with the guy. I fell in love with this portrayal of the character. I think he did a really, really solid job. Now, if you haven't seen Civil War, you don't really need to watch Civil War. In the beginning, there's a lot of setup and a lot of allusions going back to Civil War, especially kind of from Spider-Man, from Peter Parker's perspective, just seeing what is happening when he got into the Civil War, and he's kind of retelling the story, which is pretty cool. Now, I'm also a big Jon Favreau fan. He made, in my opinion, the best Marvel movie ever, which is the first Iron Man. He was responsible for, and he is in this movie as the butler of, pretty much, or the right-hand man of Tony Stark of Iron Man. And so I think the fact that he was in the movie, like the whole cameo thing where he appears and he's a main character and he's in the other movies, I love those links. So I think Marvel did a good job. Now in the beginning you do hear the classic 60s Spider-Man tune with a little bit of a a work in, but it's very respectful of the original, which is what I love. And so what I love about this film is that it poked fun at some Spider-Man things, but in a very great way, but not putting it down. Very much like paying honor, paying tribute, and it was sprinkled here and there. It was done very tastefully, and I think the allusions to the old Spider-Man, the classic Spider-Man, were very well done. And I do have to say a few things, some negatives that I'm going to immediately note and get out of the way. There is a good amount of product placement. I don't know why that is. I'm sure it's because of money. That was one thing I dock points off. I don't want to blatantly see that all the time. It's like they're just pushing a product. They're pushing a product. So I'm no longer watching a movie and being immersed in this world. I'm being advertised through very obviously in the movie. I don't like that. Another thing also, I want to have you give your thoughts into this whole topic, but this film is very purposefully multicultural. Especially with Spider-Man's love interest, Flash Thompson changes races in this. I'm not saying it's good or it's bad. I'm gonna leave that up to you. Of course, I have my own opinion, but let me tell you, some people would see it as very politically correct. And what I did love when I watched the 90s cartoon of Spider-Man, one of the things that he did was to use web cartridges. So he put a web cartridge in there. So that's very different from the original Spider-Man movies, in which it came out of his body. Like his body produced the silk. Whereas this is different. He needs the web cartridges and they run out. And then that's kind of part of the film too, getting the web cartridge in there loaded and ready to go. And I think that was kind of important. I did like that a lot more than him just producing the silk, which is, like, I understand that, but it's kind of weird and kind of creepy. And another thing that I can't get over, and I don't care what anyone says, no one's gonna convince me, Aunt May's age. Marissa Tomei did a great job, but she is not Aunt May. She played a very young, like almost like older sister, like very beautiful. Aunt May's supposed to be an older lady. She's supposed to be someone who Peter Parker takes care of. That's what's in the cartoons. That's what's in the comic. And this, they just, in my opinion, took too much liberty. They were just trying to appeal to the younger audience. Now, one of the things, Tom Holland is a great actor. One of the reasons why I'll say this is because I noticed a lot of Tobey Maguire isms in his acting. He had to have seen 1, 2, and 3. His smirk, like there's these weird things that Tobey Maguire does that you just pick up on. And then I'm like, Tom Holland just did them. Why? But like, it's good. Like, I was very impressed, and I was like, wow, this guy's paying tribute to Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. And I thought that was very respectful. Now, one of the things I want to talk about is also the Vulture. The Vulture, of course, you know, he's a Vulture. So the character is usually bald, and he has like a big nose, and he has like, his getup is very Vulture-esque, and there's feathers. Now, compare that to the movie. This movie is very Dark Knight-esque or Batman Begins-esque, very Chris Nolan. What I mean by that, it makes a lot of sense. For example, the web cartridges, it makes sense versus him spilling out, you know, ink, or not ink, but silk. Or here we see Vulture, instead of having these wings that come out of his body, or making like a feather suit where he can magically fly all of a sudden, which that can't happen. It's like he has a suit. It's almost like a turbine suit with these blades made out of steel. It's almost like, yeah, that could fly. That makes sense to me. And it comes off his body, and then he has like a flight jacket and oxygen, because obviously, and that just makes sense, and that makes him look like the Vulture. I think that was genius. That was great. That's how they should make these characters these days. It's kind of like Catwoman in The Dark Knight Rises with her goggles. They come up and they create her ears. I think that was just like genius, because it's like, why would she have ears? You know, it's like very campy. They put logic into it, and I think that was so great. We'll also see the Shocker, actually 2 incarnations of the Shocker. Again, one of them was I don't know, better than the other. I'll let you judge who was that. That's not the point. I think the point was that they did Shocker fairly well. I think it was great. He was more of a henchman, which is kind of what he is, and they made it work. It wasn't 50 villains. It wasn't a little bit of this guy, a lot of this guy, medium of this guy. They did really well with how that worked. The things I really hate in a movie is when they do a lot of night action scenes, because you can't really see what's going on. I'm like turning up the gamma on my computer or turning up the gamma in the theater, and it's really hard to see. They did that a lot in the beginning, but it was like they were trying to obscure the Vulture, but then all of a sudden we go to where it is light and bright and outside. But I think they had too many of the dark scenes. There are so many surprises in this movie, so many revelations, even a big one. I'll just allude to this. You have Peter Parker knocking on a door and opens the door, and it is like, oh my goodness. It is literally the moment that I never expected. It floored me. If you've seen the movie, you probably know the big moment where it was like, oh no. And it was so well done, so well written. It took me completely by surprise. I was like, oh no. And I was so into the story, and I was sweating. And I was like, what is going on? The movie drew me in so much. It did a fantastic job. Also, there was an allusion to Matt Gargan, and because I remember his name from the cartoon, Matt Gargan eventually becomes the Scorpion. I think that was genius. He was in it. He was kind of like a henchman, and then they called out a couple names, and his was among them, and he kind of looks like the character would be, like he's Latino. And I'm just like, oh, this is great, although Gargan isn't really Latino. But anyway, again, more of the PC stuff. But I think it was just so genius. You do see real moral dilemmas in this movie. You do see graying lines. So the villain is not just some crazy guy who's just like blowing everything up. There's like a justification. There's a reason. And you're like, I understand him. He's doing something wrong, but I understand what he's doing. In fact, maybe he's doing the right thing. Maybe Spider-Man is not too old, or he's too young to understand what's going on. I think that was great, fantastic. Movies need to do this. They need to do this. You can't have everything so black and white. Sometimes it works, but sometimes it just doesn't. Like The Dark Knight with the Joker. He's a maniac, but there's also a reason why he does every little thing. And then the only thing I want to point out at the end, Aunt May knows the identity of Spider-Man, or that's at least what's alluded. I know it's not really a spoiler because it doesn't really say anything in terms of the story, but I think this is so pivotal because in the whole concept of Spider-Man, his identity is a secret. His best friend, which I think was great, the actor, Spider-Man's friend Ned was amazing. I think it would be campy. I thought it would be cheesy. I think it would be dumb, but I stand corrected. He was a great addition. He was so funny. He was so smart. But the fact that Aunt May knows the identity of Spider-Man, the fact that all these people kind of know, but the big one was Aunt May. I had a really big problem with Aunt May. Let me tell you guys and gals, I absolutely love this movie. It became one of my favorite Marvel movies ever. I have like my top 5 list, which I may do someday, might reveal, but let me tell you, I was so impressed by this film. I love it more than Spider-Man the original 1, 2, and 3. I really, really do. I'm gonna give this film an A-. It deserves that A-. I even think it deserves an A. If it didn't have all the negatives that I pointed out, the Aunt May thing, if it didn't have the product placement, the purposeful multiculturalism, I don't know if I took points off of that. I kind of lived with it. But there was just some things that was like, whoa, 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 in your face, I have to do this. But I think the film was fantastic. It is so worth you watching. If you're even this much into watching any type of superhero, if you like Marvel, if you like Spider-Man, you need to watch this movie. Like I said, in my opinion, the best Spider-Man film out there, bar none. Thank you so much, guys and gals, for watching. Let me know what you think if you did see the movie. And if you ever want to see like a spoiler, where I have spoilers and I talk about different elements of the movie, let me know. I would love to do that. We'll see you all next time, and don't forget to stay positive and most importantly, be hopeful.